Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Lost in the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Josh Myota. Tonight's special guest is Tatiana. She is an energy translator and decoder. Her TikTok handle is Infinite Creator 555. Be sure to check her out. Tatiana, could you tell us what an energy translator and decoder is?
Yes, I have the ability to read energy. And by reading your energy, I can actually decode your programming and help you heal. So you can actually become that divine being that is actually dormant inside of you. What I do is that I actually teach people to understand the subconscious because most of our life is being created by our subconscious. 94% is in consciousness. So what I do is that point those things out so you can actually be present and here and create a more harmonious reality. And I can also see past lives through the Akashic records reading.
Very cool. Could you explain to us what the Akashic records are?
The Akasha is actually a library, a universal library that holds all the information about every single experience that consciousness has. We're part of the totality, so we're here because Source, the creator, what you call God, has decided to have an experience. So, as he experienced different realities, galaxies, and different worlds, he's actually recording everything, and every time we have a human experience there is that learning recorded in the Akashi records. Everything is recorded, even a plant, a crystal, an animal, everything is being recorded and sent to source. So some people have the ability to read what happens in a past life because time doesn't exist, so everything is happening simultaneously. So when everything happens simultaneously, we're existing past, present, and future. So the information that we gather from the past can actually help us understand the reason why we keep repeating cycles. So when a person have access to that, not only have access to past life, but it has access to tell you what life lessons you came to learn based on what has been recorded in the Akasha library. So I have that ability.
When did you first learn that you had these abilities?
Well, I started a big journey back when I died in 2019. I don't know if people is familiar to what is called the body graph. The body graph is like a chart that tells you when your higher self position the consciousness in the avatar. And the day that I positioned myself was September 11th, 1979. And in 2019, September 11 at 3:42, I had a heart attack. I died for 5 minutes. And when I died, I was actually able to meet with one of my guides. And that's when my awakening started. Back in January, I was part of a spiritual group. And I decided to start posting my channelings because as I heal, I started to receive messages. And my first message was about Atlantis and my family back in Atlantis. There were actually seven kingdoms, and I'm part of one of the aquatic kingdom that is named Excel. And I decided to post something in TikTok, and then people started seeing it. And as I continue and people asking questions, I started to see that I had the gift. I was able to see because one of the first thing that happens when I started healing, I remember my past life. So it was easy for me to start asking you questions and putting the pieces together and finding out what you were in a past life. And one day somebody decided to contact me. As a matter of fact, it's so funny because she was Jewish. And the rivalry between Judaism and Christianity, and being part of one of the fractals of Sananda, I was able to help her. She was in a narcissistic relationship, and I was able to do a past life regression. It was not the Akashi records. I was able to help her go back in time, and she saw herself in a cabin, and she was actually seeing how this little girl died out of what happened in the cabin. She was in a fire because she did some mistake that she hasn't for, like she had lack of forgiveness for herself because of the mistake, and because of that she was engaged in a narcissistic relationship for 40 years. Was able to pull her records, and then she started referring me to all her friends, and that's how I started to know that I had the gift.
Wow. When you had a near death experience, did you see any of the lights? Was your guide just waiting there for you? Did you just leave your body?
I left my body and I was waiting for Jesus. Because, as I was a very devoted Christian, I was actually a pastor. I had what is called House of Jesus. I was an evangelist. And for 5 years, I decided to study with the Jews. I became Jew for a little bit, and I was celebrating everything, and I was very radical. And when I did that fasting, I was waiting for a message from Jesus. And as soon as I left my body, there was a man standing next to the body. And I had a telepathic conversation. And he said, "Listen, don't freak. It's okay. It's not your time yet. And answers will come as you continue this journey." And he sent peace to me. And his heart chakra light up. And he sent me that trust and confidence that I was going to be okay. And 3 days later, after that, and I went back to my body. So after that happens, 3 days later, my father, who passed away for 22 years, he came to visit me. I was in my living room talking to a friend, and then my son got out of the bathtub screaming because he saw my father. So then my father started to speak to me, and I became like in a trance because back in 2016, I wrote a letter because I was going through a lot. My daughter was autistic. I was in a very toxic relationship. So I asked God for answers. I said, why did my father left me? Why my mom was so toxic? Why is my daughter autistic? So when my father came to see me, he allowed me to see, listen to this, how important this is, how the ancestors actually influence your life. I have a master's degree in business and I hated it. And I was like, why did I study this? And then, because my father's father was a drug, so he said that, oh, I influenced you because I was very good in businesses and I always wanted to go to school. I'm like, thank you. Because I don't like to, I used to work for banks. I used to be a banker. So I'm like, thank you. And then every single date related to him was a day that it was related with something that I have to experience. The day my father died was August 26th. And that was the same date my narcissistic disorder was born. To allow you to experience that is because I want you to see that you can love what is harming you. Because I always judge my dad. I always thought that the reason why my daughter was autistic was because of generational curse, but it wasn't the case. So a lot of days coincide with the experiences that I had, and it had to do with a lesson. Um, for example, my father had a daughter and she was disabled. And the day she died, my daughter was born. So that gives you an example how the matrix and the programming doesn't fail. And you pick up from the lesson of other person that you needed to be learned.
Interesting.
If you are in an open place and you start yawning or you start coughing, it's because you're transmuting an energy.
Something I'll have to consider every time now. Very cool.
And one of the reasons, Josh, is because our body is our karmic map. Everything that we perceive gets encoded in our DNA. That's the reason why it's so hard to heal. Because people think that you're healing through your mind, but no, you heal through biology. Everything that happens through our body, every emotion is recorded If we're not able to integrate it in the totality, gets hidden in our body, and that's the reason why we get sick. And anything that you don't work in a past life, it gets transferred to this life. For example, in my past life, I had endometriosis, which means that I was rejecting I wasn't able to integrate being a woman and a mom. And this life, I had endometriosis grade 4 with cancer. And I had to heal it in order for me to heal my feminine energy. So people think that by skipping or dying, you're escaping what you needed to do, and it's not true. You have to work it out in the next life.
So it just keeps crossing over.
You cross over.
Very
It's like,
interesting.
hello, I'm here.
It's like, joke's on you. You still got the same problems.
Exactly. And that's the reason why people don't understand what it means to commit suicide. People think that suicide is just basically you ending. I had an uncle. Listen to this. When I started my Infinity Creator account, my uncle contacted me. He committed suicide back in 1995. Listen to this. One of the first clients that I had was my uncle who committed suicide in 1995. His name was exactly the name he had when he passed. His name was Romeo. That was my uncle's name. And guess what? His karma amplified. His parents were toxic, worse than the parents he had in this life. And as a matter of fact, he couldn't handle the truth. He stopped following me when I made a message about like the thing is that we need to understand that when we are asleep, we compare to the darkness. You're actually dark. When you are asleep and you're not embracing your light, you are in the darkness. So that's compared to, being in a state of negativity. So his journey is very hard, but people think that by committing suicide, you end in the mission. No. As a matter of fact, when a person dies, it's going to be lingering in 4D, and it's going to be tortured by the what happens in this life until you're ready to be rescued and come back again. And whatever happens in the life that you didn't want it to accept and confront is going to amplify it.
Wow. So committing suicide is almost like putting your next life on hard mode.
Yep. Committing suicide is like, hey, you're going to play this game with the hardest settings.
Wow.
And I did
It's
try to
interesting.
help him. But listen, one thing that I have learned as a well, because listen, I don't know if you know this, but there is 3 levels: light worker, shadow worker, and ascending master. That's the 3 levels as you evolve. I passed from a light worker to a shadow worker. So one thing that I learned as a shadow worker is that we're not here to help anybody. We can't. The person needs to be ready to be able to accept. In order for somebody to heal, they need to be humble. They need to be ready to be accountable for what they have created. And they need to be able to be ready to accept the story. People don't want to accept the story. For example, a lot of people that have exited my groups is because they haven't been able to understand that you choose your parents. You chose them. And whatever energy you end up in your past life is the energy of your inside feminine and masculine. So, for example, I told you that my father was a drug dealer, right? It wasn't that I was a drug dealer killing everybody. It's just that I was a person that it was highly manipulative, and I was highly narcissist, because people think that the story is the same. No, the message is the same, not the story. And that's the reason why I needed to pick a person like that in order for me to identify the toxicity of my masculine energy. And if you're not ready to be accountable for the story, you're not going to be able to heal, because your chakras is evolution. People don't understand that either. Like the first chakra is very merely instinctive. The second chakra is your feminine chakra that has to do with the victim mentality. So if you're not able to be accountable, you will never come above the sacral chakra. You're gonna stay there in cycles, repeated cycles, because the next chakra is your masculine energy, and that has to do with power struggle. I want it for you to think like me. I want you to do what I tell you to do. So if you're not ready to do the victim, you're gonna, well, after you're ready for that, you come to the sacral chakra. And then if you're not able to understand that everybody has their own life and their own truth, you're gonna stay there too. So that's the reason why if anybody wants to do the path of ascension, they need to realize that you need to be responsible of what you choose.
But ultimately, whenever we hear a lot on TikTok, everybody talks about raising your vibrations, and ultimately, that means ascending.
But how do you raise your vibration, Josh? How do you think?
I personally believe it's by being a better person, being more compassionate, um, and being honest, being your lighter self.
Raising vibration has to do with expanding your consciousness. And your consciousness is not going to be able to be expanded just by having crystals. Your conscious is not going to be expanded just by doing tarot cards. Your consciousness is not going to expand by just being, I'm supposed to be. Look what I'm saying. I'm supposed to be tolerant. I'm supposed to be compassionate. That defeats the purpose of the great I am, because the great I am comes from understanding that before light is a shadow. So, in order for you to raise your vibration, you need to understand how much shadow you have accumulated throughout the lives. And how do we understand that? By going back in the past. Let's say you cannot see past lives. Just go back to as long as you can remember, because our brain gets programmed from 0 to 5 years. What happens between those years from 0 to 5? How was your interaction with your mom? How did your mom treated you? How was your relationship with food? How was your relationship with your father? How did your mom see your father? Because those things are going to affect the way how you think. So you can be as tolerant as you can because you are in the should be. But what about if your programming is emasculating the mask of ego? Because that's the problem of personality. People think they are their personality, but I am not my personality. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Those things are what is part of the programming. And in order for me to be able to have the mind of the higher self, I need to decode what my parents recorded inside of me through the process of seeing. For example, I cannot tell my kid to stop screaming if I scream. Right now, he's recording every time I scream. He's recording every time I call him names. He's recording everything. So when he becomes older, guess what? He's gonna find a version of me that is gonna treat him how he see that I treated him. That's the reason why people don't ascend. They think they're ascending because they're using sage. They think they're ascending because they're doing tarot readings. They think they ascend because, oh, I'm positive and I'm in these gatherings with good music. But that's not ascending. Ascending is cleaning layers, layers and layers. Because listen to this. What happened to me when I was little is what happened in Atlantis. That's the reason why I'm here. I'm gonna give you an example. In Atlantis, my fa- um, in Atlantis, it was a civilization of positivity. They did not know what it was to be negative until the negative races started hijacking and interbreeding and doing war. So my father was seduced by one of the Anunnakis. And when that happens, he started to be dual. And he cheated on my mom with my grandmother. So my mom killed my grandmother. And when that happens, because I don't know if you know this, in Atlantis, women were the priestess, not the men. So my mom was put into jail and I was taken by my father as his queen. So when that happens, he used my power. Listen to this. This is the most important part. And this I discovered this year because my father in Atlantis was my toxic ex partner. So every single relationship that I have created in this life was a version of him. For example, I was married to a Hindu guy that was part of him, and he was also my father in a past life. So listen to this. In Atlantis, he persuaded me through the tactics of manipulation to allow him to use my power to destroy other females that they were going to take away his power. And at the end, he was very sick, and I blame myself for that because I wanted to save him. And in this life, I was doing the same thing. Like when I was with my ex partner, the narcissist, I put him to jail 3 times. And the first time, I lied to get him out because I wanted to save him. And he needed to be responsible for what he did. So that's the reason why every single life, we're going to keep repeating what we saw as childs because that's the story that we came to heal. So that's the reason why ascending is not just I should be. It's actually deciphering the story behind the I should be in order for us to bring that Christ consciousness and become the divinity that is hidden inside of us.
Where to even start, though? I mean, when you look into somebody's past life, and like you were saying too, when it also has to do with parental influence, how can one change such things as that?
Listen to this. For aliens, they don't believe in what is called family. They don't have family systems. That was actually created here because we have been divided. It's so funny. Listen to this. Let's talk about something that is very sensitive for any community. Like, let's talk about blacks and whites. Sometimes I see in TikTok an influencer that is a spiritual and she's saying, oh, the Anunnakis were black and whatever, black this, black that. But what about if in a past life you were enslaving the blacks and now you're black? People don't understand the story. Everything that separates us from the totality is because you did that in a past life. I have been everything. I have been black, I have been Chinese, I have been in Japan, I have been in Tibet, I have been in Greece, I have been everywhere. So there is no way I can actually defend one thing or the other because we have experienced everything. Like when I was a Viking, my name was Helga, and I became a killer. I kill men. But in this life, I'm not killing anybody. And it was the reason for me to experience that so I can know the value of life. So, going back to the family system, the reason why it is important for us to understand how we defractal ourselves into different actors, because let's call it what we're doing now is acting to remember to heal. So why did I defractal myself in my father and my mom? That is actually me. Why defractal myself in my brothers? That is actually me. Because I don't know if you guys know this. Everything that is outside is holographic if it's not a real person. Because only 20% of humanity is real. So the reason why we defractal and project ourselves outside is for us to heal the story. So I projected my mom outside because it was part of my feminine energy that I needed to heal. My mom is the template. My mom in this life, she's very toxic. Listen, my mom doesn't like children. She doesn't like to be a mom because inside of her subconscious, she thought that by being a mom, she was losing her feminine energy. She was losing her freedom. She was never able to balance that part of her that makes her a woman and it makes her a mom too. And that's what happened to me in my past life. I I I was sabotaging. Um, I was actually thinking that if I became a woman, I was gonna lose my sex appeal. because I was a woman that I was wanted a lot. So I didn't want it to lose that, but consciously I was thinking that I wanted to be a mom, but I was never able. But in this life, I came to heal that. I came to heal that I'm able to be a woman and I'm able to be a mom too.
How do star seeds wrap into all this as well?
Well, we have a compact that is called intuition, and it's like an alarm clock that is inside of you that actually detonates at the time that it's time for you to go back to where you come from. And listen to this, there is different eras, right? We were in the era of Pisces, and now we are in the era of Aquarius. And when you understand the energy, the zodiac energies have dual purpose too. For example, in the era of Aquarius, we're seeing you either become a spiritual or you become a machine. As you know, one of the agenda for the people that is in control of the world, they wanted to put the consciousness in a computer. So the people that is due for evolution, they have a spiritual clock that is telling them it's time for us to awaken. And it can take as much as 250 years. Because, for example, I'm a very old soul. I have been here 120 lives. It's not possible for me to actually remember everything in one single life. So as I continue to grow, I start pulling layers and layers. So I can guarantee you that anybody that is called to be awakened is going to start questioning reality. I don't know if you're familiar with the tarot cards. There is one called the Tower. Whenever you see the tarot card, the Tower means something is going to happen, something's going to strike. So for me, it was through the hard processes. Like it means that I've been very stubborn in my entire life. Like, oh, I'm fixated in this, I don't want to let this go. So in order for me to be able to move on, I choose very hard processes like dying. If I didn't die, I will continue to be a pastor. I started to be a behavior therapist too, and there is something called saturation. When you're saturated of the experience, that's when your soul is going to determine, that's it. That's it. I don't want to continue experience this. And unfortunately, religion does not offer a solution to that, because what they offer is heaven and earth. I'm sorry, heaven and hell. So you either do what you're supposed to do or you're going to go to hell. So that brings punishment. So instead of giving a solution, is giving more of the negative emotion that people is trying to stay away from. So my experience is that people through trauma and being able to search for solutions, they start the process of awakening.
What was the first time when you were dealing with the Akashic records when you saw an extraterrestrial, and what was your thoughts to that?
I see extraterrestrials all the time. As a matter of fact, my mom is Arthurian. She's from the ninth dimension. And every time I have a crisis, she comes. Just as how I give classes, I continue to do my learning, because if I want to continue expand, I need to continue exploring what I need to heal. So I take classes, and I actually take a therapy. It's an energy therapy. I met this guy. He's totally awesome. To me, he's an angel, because he can see everything like X-rays. He has X-ray vision. So um, every time I am struggling, my mom appears. I can see her in her, you know, I can see her like I'm seeing you, and she helps me with what I'm going through. So what I was gonna tell you is that I don't know if a lot of people that is star seeds knows. Listen to this. This is very important. As our fault, the reason why we're here is because we were not able to forgive ourselves because of what happened in a traumatic past. So there's three emotions that put us here, which is shame, guilt, and punishment. Those three emotions disconnect us from the heart chakra, which was the connection to higher self. I didn't know this, and I learned this year that we're totally disconnected from higher self until a kundalini arises and connects in the heart chakra. So this year I started my process of awakening my feminine and masculine energy, and I was able to connect back with higher self. So when I was connecting to higher self, I was doing my energy therapy, and my daughter, she doesn't speak, listen to this. My daughter was actually my psychiatrist in my past life. Listen, past lives fascinates me. Listen to this. My daughter was a psychiatrist that studied retardation in teenagers, and this life, her major condition is a retardation. You imagine that? And she doesn't speak, and she wrote three books past life. Three books. So my daughter who doesn't speak, she appeared in the therapy that I was doing, the energy therapy. So the guy told me, listen, your daughter is here and she wants to be reconnected with higher self. Listen to this. My mom, who's Arthurian, appeared too with an Anunnaki. Listen to this. Like we were shield, because you know the aura shield us. So we were shield, and my mom appeared, and then she asked for permission to show me something. And we said, okay. And then the Anunnaki came, and both of them were doing this with the DNA of my daughter. And what she was trying to say is that there was a mix between the Anunnakis and the Arthurians, and that produced my daughter. And after that, my daughter was connected with her higher self, and she revealed three of her sacred names. So I found that very cool and interesting. And if I see aliens that you wouldn't, because people knows Plagarians, Orions, Sirius. I know a lot. I know more than 100 names, like the Ginkgos, the Ramey. Like I know names that like they blow your mind. There is a lot of aliens, not just the ones we know. But my coolest experiences with my Arthurian mom. Her name is John B.A.
Is she like a spirit guide as well? You said she comes pretty often, huh?
Yeah, she's a spirit guide. There is actually three kinds of spirit guides. The one that is gonna be with you for the rest of your life. So she's always with me. There is some spirit guides that they're only here until you learn a specific lesson, like my dog. My dog reincarnated twice. He was actually a raccoon back in a life in Buffalo. I was part of the white buffalo. Listen, she was very submissive. As a matter of fact, when my dog died, nobody knew because she was so quiet. She was a French poodle. And you know, in my past life, I had a French poodle. As a matter of fact, when they killed me, my French poodle was confused. So my dog was a female dog because dog speaks on your energy. If you have animals, pay attention of how your animals act because they pick from your energy. So my dog was very quiet. Then she died. She only lasted 10 years. And she died, listen to this, on the day my grandmother died, which is one of my spirit guides. My grandma is my spirit guide. Then I had another French poodle, a male dog. He was so vicious. Oh my God, he was only 9 pounds and everybody was afraid of him. They're like, oh, that's the white dog in the corner. Oh, he's so savage. And he was only 9 pounds. And that was my masculine, my masculine energy. Listen to this. And he died the day my grandma was born. Listen to this. First one died when my grandma died, and the second one died when my grandma's birthday. And he's not coming back because he was only here to show me what I needed to learn with my toxic ex. So now I have Nova. Listen, Nova means new, and she's great. And guess what? She's Scorpio. Remember that I told you in Atlantis I was a Scorpio? My two
Hmm.
kids are Scorpio, and my dog is a Scorpio because That was my original energy in Atlantis.
So awesome.
And listen to this. Listen to this. Um, when you are in a twin flame relationship, and twin flame doesn't mean that you're going to find that lost soulmate that is going to complete you. It could be as simple as you integrating you. That's it. That's what it means, right? So when you are in a twin flame relationship, guess what? Your children are going to be born as twins. My daughter, my son was almost born on the day my son was born. My son was born on 11/21 and my daughter was born on November 19th. So they're 2 days apart. So by universal law, they're twins. Listen to this. I told you that my mom is Argentinian, but right now she's here incarnated as a human and she's my best friend. Listen to this. This is going to blow your mind. My best friend is my mom from Atlantis, and she was born the same day as my natural mom. And guess what? She's red hair. I'm
Oh,
telling you.
definitely sum up with redheads with everything that you told me. That's so cool.
Listen to this. My father was red hair. My mom, the one my best friend is red hair. My ex, narcissist, all his sisters are red hair. But remember, the color of the hair has to do with what you came to heal. Black hair means that I came to protect my thoughts. So that's the reason why my hair is black. It was needed. But in my past life, I was red hair. And guess what my blood type was? AB.
Hmm. Another question I had. You talk a lot about the chakras. How does one go about fixing a chakra to
Okay.
get it in line?
We all have chakras. And it's not that they're damaged, it's just that it has blockages. When it comes to thoughts, depending how you we have seven emotional bodies, just how we have seven main chakras. We have more chakras. As a matter of fact, there is one called the star that it connects us to planet Earth. But the ones that we use the most as humans are seven. So every time you perceive something, depending how you perceive it, is gonna be a store in a vortex of energy that is called chakras. So the chakras get blocked by you perceiving it in something that is gonna divide you from the totality. For example, let's say that I'm a very sensitive person with sentimentalism. Because people don't know the difference between an emotion and sentiment. Sentiment is when you keep feeding an emotion into the negative. So let's say, for example, I assume. Assuming is devastating. Assuming keeps you in a negative state. Let's say that you say something and I assume that is something against me, and then I'm gonna store it in my sexual chakra. Guess what? I'm gonna start developing back pain. And then somebody else comes and says something that instead of has to do with me has to do with them, but I take it personal and I keep storing it in the sexual chakra. What's gonna happen is that I'm going to start blocking my sexual energy that I need to use in order for me to create stuff, to create a job, to create a partnership, to create possibilities for me to make more income, to create children. So, how do you heal that? But start observing what you're thinking and what keeps repeating. For example, it took me a long time to heal because of my template of my masculine energy. I used to think that my children were doing things to disrespect me. Listen to this. This is a big one because they have taught us that children need to respect you, right? Otherwise, punishment. Oh, your children are so disrespectful. Look at you. Because they have taught us that children are a reflection. So if they doing something wrong, it's because they don't want to listen to you, right? So it took me a long time to realize that my children are just experiencing life. And the best thing for me to do is to actually show them by example how they needed to process emotions, and I needed to speak with them a lot about understanding emotions, which was something that they never taught us. They never taught us. Whenever, I don't know how your culture is, but my culture is like you start crying, they will say, "Oh, let me beat you up so you can have another reason to cry." Like we were not allowed to feel. I don't know if you
Oh,
can.
no. Very, very much can relate to that. I'll give you something to cry about. Was the one that was.
So that's actually devastated for your emotional body. And your emotional body is your solar plexus. And that's the reason why we're so dual and untrusting, because they never show us how to process emotions correctly. And listen, the easiest emotion to experience is madness. And that's what is actually affecting humanity. Because instead of transmuting the energy and becoming into what you say, tolerant and compassionate, the only thing humans feel is mad. I'm mad, I'm mad, I'm mad, I'm irritable. If you cross the street or you're driving and somebody cuts you off, you become mad. Why? Because nobody took the time to show us how to process the emotions. And it's a very hard process, Josh, because of the programming.
Where do you even start to fight that programming?
Well, join my classes. No, I'm kidding. Uh, well, how I teach in my classes, I decided to start by the feminine energy, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because if we can actually understand source is a feminine energy, and it's not because I'm a feminist. It's because source, if you study sacred geometry, the first geometrical shape there was actually a circle, which is the feminine energy. So when Source wanted to have a duality experience, he diffracted himself into masculine. Masculine is action, speaking, force, will. So I decided to start my classes by teaching about the feminine energy, because if people understand creation, they can become a creator. And how do you heal the feminine energy? By going back in the past and understanding your relationship with your mom, understanding how she feeds you. One of the most important things that if you have children, right, and you're gonna have more, that your wife can do is having a close connection with the fetus. One of the biggest things, food. How a woman or a man relates with food is how they relate with the feminine energy. How a woman uses the intuition to connect with the baby is how the human being is gonna develop the connection with source. So one of the things, for example, my mom, she overfed me. She didn't even like how a woman actually take care of the child, the baby, is by asking their mom, the baby is crying, what should I do? And that's how they actually raise the child, right? Instead of asking the intuition, is the baby hungry, is the baby cold, is the baby having a stomach ache? So just in that little relationship, we actually start becoming dysfunctional just by that little thing. Why? Because how we relate with life is how we relate with the feminine energy, and how we relate with our mom is our feminine energy. It's like a symbolism. I don't know if I make myself clear.
I understand.
So that's the reason why it's so important for us to do something that I call recap. You continuously need to recap. Recap what happens. And people ask me, but I don't remember. Use your intuition. Intuition is one of the main gifts that feminine energy has. Use it. Another thing that I do, I make people do the family tree with the dates so we can actually decode the programming. See the patterns. See how your mom related with your dad. See how your sister is related with her husband. And just like that, you start decoding the matrix so you can understand your toxic traits. And that's how you start healing. But it's a very lengthy, painful process. And you know what I noticed, Josh? When people goes to a certain point of freedom, the programming drags them back. I had a very good student. Listen, this man had so many psychic abilities. As a matter of fact, he was actually visited by a reptilian, and the reptilian scratched him and his wife. He was very gifted, but he had so many inner wounds, abandonment, rejection. He couldn't keep up. As soon as he got a bright moment of ascension, the programming pulled him back. So you need to be very consistent, very disciplined, and you want it to be free. If that is not your will, you will never heal and will continue have some moments and go back, some moments and go back.
So it seems like it's a very lengthy process. It's you need to put in forth the effort.
But I think it's worth a judge. Think about all. Listen, I come from a very dysfunctional family, right? So if I do the work, it's like an offering that I'm giving myself. Because when I reincarnate again, guess what? I pick from the energy that I left, right? So if I heal my masculine and my masculine and my feminine energy, I have a big chance of coming back with a better experience. In compare that if I don't do anything and continue to be toxic. So it's like a win-win.
My last guest, we talked about the Astro War. How do you think this all ties into
The astral world, meaning the
not the
um,
Astro World, the Astro War, the struggle between light and dark beings?
oh, I think this is just a game. There is no win or lose. I think Source is just allowing us to have an experience for us because Earth, the initial purpose of Earth was for angels to have an experience in the density. And everything has to do with free will. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a game. I think at the end, we're just gonna go back to Source and start again. Is a matter of how much are we going to continue destroying or getting united. That's it. But I know for a fact that as we continue to ascend, we're gonna go back to the first planet that we experience matter. For example, I was living in Pleiades, I was living in Venus, I was living in other galaxies like Andromeda. But the first planet that saw me here was Sirius. So I know that as continue to do my ascension, I will have a chance to go back there and continue. But what's gonna happen? I don't think that Earth is gonna be destroyed. I don't think because Earth is a very important planet to keep balance in this universe. Is it going to be a struggle of powers? Yes. As we continue, because there is going to be a point that the veil is going to rip off. And most likely, we're going to gain our powers. For example, people don't understand that in the dream world, we actually have our natural essence. I can fly in my dreams. That's called levitation. That's one of the psychic abilities. So as we continue to grow in power, is the question is what are we gonna do? Because for example, I don't care anymore about what happens. Like what I'm focusing on is on my creation. What I'm focusing on is on my children. What I'm focusing on is on having the best human experience that I can have before I leave. But the question to other people is what are they going to do? As you get your powers, are you going to continue the struggle with the negative races? Or are you just going to ascend? But I don't think Earth is going to be destroyed. Um, I think there's going to be switch, like, a split between 3D and 4 and 5D. Not now, not soon, but I think we're gonna move to 5D into a more harmonious version of planet Earth. Whoever stays here, I don't know if it's gonna be very harmonious because the people here is very full of greed. They want power, but they want the kind of power that is by taking away your power, not by using my own power. So I don't think it's gonna be very harmonious for whoever doesn't take the chance to leave. I don't know. What do you think, Josh?
Oh, that's a good question to throw back at me, and nobody's done that before. um, I honestly think we are seeing a lot more with disclosure that everybody's starting to be way more open. I mean, even us, we're openly talking about extraterrestrials. I think in the near future, we're going to start hearing more and more. I think that's also a reason why the U.S. government is starting to openly talk about and declassify things too.
They have to, because the contract is finished. And there is something called the Carmelian law. If they don't do that, they're gonna get karma, and they don't want that. Because if I'm telling you what I'm doing, I don't get karma. It's up to you to let me abuse you. So that's the reason why they're being more open to let us know what's going on, because they know the contract is finished. So I think we're gonna be all right. I
Yeah,
think, because we can't be destroyed. We're energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. So
it can only be transferred.
exactly.
Is there anything else you'd like to speak with everybody about, or
Well, I would like for people to get encouraged in the process, and for people to understand that fear is just a distortion of reality, and it is possible to change your thoughts and your emotions by being able to learn how to filter them, and it's possible to live a more harmonious. People think that being abundant has to do with money and resources. Abundance is a state of mind. Abundance means that I do less and I accomplish more. Because doing less is the state of divinity. And if we understand that the seeds comes from inside and now outside, we can all become infinity creators. And that's my message. Like if they ask me what is my dream life, you know what is my dream life? I'm planning to buy me an RV and becoming a gypsy and travel all over and allow my children to become free. People don't understand how harmful it is, the indoctrination. And my kids are homeschooled, and I can guarantee you that I took away from them the stress that they wanted to put us on. A child is not supposed to be 7 hours a day learning something that is not even reality, that is not even history, not something that is going to empower them to become creators. My son has a great imagination that I continuously promote. If a child has imagination, they can become a creator. If you visualize it, you can bring it to the matter. So, what can I encourage people to do? To become infinity creators from the point of freedom. Freedom is a choice. People don't understand that freedom could be as much as somebody pointing to you and trying to kill you, but you have the liberty to say, shoot me, because I don't care. People think that freedom has to do with this. That's not freedom. And power is also the materialization of your masculine energy. How do you use your power? That's the question. I put classes for free in my YouTube channel. The thing is that I give one class per month so people can have a month to actually practice the art of observing. You need to become the observer from the avatar so you can heal. But I meet every week with the groups. I have 3 groups. And every time I meet, we go over the classes, which is kind of a resume, some little parts of the class, and I teach them how to meditate, and I teach them how to activate their psychic abilities, and that's for free. So people can see it on my YouTube channel if they want to have a gist of what I teach in my classes.
cool, cool. And then we'll all them are all in the link below.
Thank you for having me here. I
Thank
was
you.
very surprised. I'm like, what? What an honor. Because you know
Oh,
something, is not just about making money, it's about spreading the message. It's about, because people don't realize Mother Earth, Gaia, is a body. She's real, just like you and me. We're just a little cell in the, we're micro in the macro. You know, Mother Earth can choose to shake it off and we all be deleted, you know, if we decided not to ascend, right? Because she has to do what she has to do regardless whether or not we do it. But if we all get together and decided to heal, we can all be part of what she's doing. And that's the most important thing. Thank you
So,
for your job, Josh.
oh, no problem. It was a real pleasure having you on. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.